We've gone through our individual player coverage and have given you background and analysis in detail on 16 of the top running backs in the 2019 NFL Draft Class. And today, we are looking at the best of the rest as we continue to roll through over 50 prospects in total right here on DynastyLeagueFootball.com.
The NFL Draft Profile Series, NFL Prospects. Break it down, let's get it. People's pen and the gridiron scholar. Time to do it major. Let's see who running the field. Let's analyze the data. Yeah, let's go.
We want to welcome you back. Hopefully you've been enjoying the coverage we've been providing throughout the 2019 NFL Draft season. We've covered 45 individual players in total right now, giving you some background and analysis on those guys. And we want to thank our hosts right here at DLF, DynastyLeagueFootball.com, who have been gracious enough to post our videos on their site. And hopefully you have been enjoying them. This is going to be a little bit more laid back. This is more or less just a conversation between John and myself. Give you some stats on the running back position as a whole. Over the last 10 years, an average of 21.8 running backs have been drafted, and over the last 5 years, it's been 21. So we can safely assume that 21 running backs will be drafted this year. The high mark has been 29 in 2011, while the low has been 18 in 2015. Last year, there were a total of 21 taken, with 3 going in the first round. And John, I don't think there is a first-round grade on any of this year's prospects. Now, we've covered 16 individually so far, as I mentioned. We'll condense a few more into this episode to give you the best of the rest. John, I know you have a larger take than some of the guys I'm going to talk about. After the 16 we've covered, the only 2 that really stick out for me is maybe they should be in that group and expand that to 18 would be Myles Gaskin of Washington and Alexander Mattison of Boise State. I know you're going to get into Madison a little bit, so let me let you take it away. Start with whoever you want, but I know you got a few guys that you like a little bit more than I do.
You know, Andy, you said something that I think is very interesting. I don't have a first-round grade on any of these running backs in this draft either. I think there's 4 of them who should go off in the second round. There's value there, depending on where they get drafted and what team they end up with. But we don't have anyone, to me, that is a no-brainer first round. Now, this draft class has so much depth. We know the top is lacking. There's no transitional running back who's going to change a fantasy football roster at the top of a dynasty board or a redraft board. But there are some interesting players who, given an opportunity, could make an impact in the DFS environment. Last year, I won a dynasty league, and my roster had at running back Damian Williams, Elijah McGuire, and Jamal Williams in my championship game. Now, those are the type of players when you're in deep dynasty rosters, you have to draft, you have to stash. They had DFS implications late in the year. So these are the type of players we are looking at. First one, Devine Ozigbo, Nebraska Cornhuskers. Hey, a late breakout player, 5'11", 222 pounds. He didn't get many touches. He didn't have very many yards entering the senior season, but there were some injuries at the running back position. Scott Frost put him into the lineup, and he really came on and produced his first 1,000-yard season as a college runner. He has an interesting profile. I wonder if he's a one-year wonder. I do think he needs to probably be put into a gap system where he can just be assigned to run straight ahead. He's not overly elusive, but he is a big player who can hurt someone in a collision. So I like him down the road. Andy, do you like Devine Ozigbo at all?
I do, but I think he's more of a developmental guy. I think he's got a little bit more to add to his game, but I like the base that he's working with, and you know he's somebody that I could see making an impact a couple of years down the road from here, but not somebody that's going to come in and win right away off the bat. I mentioned Myles Gaskin and Alexander Mattison as being 2 guys that I do think that maybe we should have been given more consideration to. Maybe we should have tried to squeeze them into our individual profiles. I mean, Madison, it's surprising that more people aren't talking about him. John, please give the listeners a little bit more on the Boise State product.
So Madison is a very tough one because I've heard some people who absolutely love him have him in the top 5. I'm kind of lukewarm on him. I mean, he ran a 4.67 in the 40-yard dash. Now, he's 5'11", 221 pounds. That's tremendous size. And I've had him on my college dynasty football team for the last 2 seasons. I've been scouting Brett Rippon for the last 2 seasons. So I've seen Alexander Mattison play a lot, and I like him. I think in the right system, given some time to grow, I think he could be a player down the road. Now, Boise State has also given us Doug Martin and Jay Ajayi within the last 6 or 7 years. So they are producing NFL caliber running backs, not saying that they're superstars, but they are players that are coming out of this system, coming out of this program, and making an impact. Now, I don't love his explosiveness or his short area speed in the 3-cone drill, 7.13, 20-yard shuttle, 4.29. But I will tell you, Andy, the film is much better on Alexander Mattison than the athletic ability. So one of the problems that I have is I like the film. I don't think it's great, but I don't like his pure athletic ability at the combine. Now, obviously, people weigh those factors differently, and I tend to weigh towards the film more than I do athletic ability. But when I see scores across the board that are that low, it kind of gives me a pause. But hey, he's been really productive on the field. He's a bell cow. He averaged over 30 carries in the final 5 games last year. He's decisive. I actually think it's kind of weird when you watch him. He leaps over tacklers a ton, which I wonder if he's going to get hurt a little bit. You know, he's pretty good. He's an underrated pass catcher. He is pretty good blocking. So I think this is a young man. You know, an NFL team might like him a lot and take him in the 4th round. I think his grades are going to be all over the board. I've already seen it in the scouting community of all the people that you and I follow on Twitter and all the different shows we listen to. Some people are really high. Some people are, don't think he can even make it in the NFL. I think he has a chance, and I think NFL teams are going to have different scores on him. So it's going to be fascinating where he falls in the draft. Now, there are 2 pass catchers that I like, Andy, in this draft. I don't know if they're every down backs, but I think they can make a difference on a team. Travis Homer of Miami and Darwin Thompson of Utah State. Both of these young men, to me, profile better as 3rd down backs who can do a lot of damage in space. Travis Homer is 5'10", 201 pounds. He kind of really popped in the 40-yard dash and the 3-cone drill. Those scores show that he has speed and that he has short area quickness. His 20-yard shuttle wasn't great, but the 3-cone drill was really solid. Hey, the last 2 years for the Hurricanes, he had over 900 yards rushing each season. I just think he never really reached his potential at Miami. I had read a lot about him coming out of high school. He was, a pretty high-ranked player. He just never really put it all together on campus. So I think there's going to be teams who love his pass-catching ability. He can be very dangerous in space. He has very nice hands. I don't know if he could be a bell cow who can carry the ball 15 times a game, from the line of scrimmage. But I think he's in a rotational system. I think Travis Homer could be very good. The other player that's really intriguing is Darwin Thompson, 5'8", 200 pounds. He played 1 season at Utah State, so he had 1 year at the FBS level. He had over 1,000 yards rushing, Andy. Now, the easy comparison is Tyreek Cohen. He definitely has similarities to his game. I think he's going to get drafted late. Some people I respect think he's an undrafted free agent. I think a team's going to fall in love with this young man. He's very tough. He's very good with the ball out in the open field. He can outrun defensive backs. He's kind of tough. He puts his shoulder down, and he hurts tacklers. I really like this young man, Darwin Thompson. I'm fascinated to see where he lands. Andy, do you like either one of these pass-catching backs?
I like Homer just because I'm a Miami guy, but I think of the potential pass-catching backs. I think Myles Gaskin is the guy I'm really looking at. I mean, he had a ton of production in an up-tempo Washington offense, over 200 carries in each of his 4 seasons. Sneaky upside as a durable change of pace back who can work into a bigger future role. John, this guy had 62 career touchdowns as a Husky. I mean, that's just insane production from a college standpoint at any level. It doesn't matter. Pee Wee football, 62 touchdowns would be a tremendous amount. So Gaskin's the guy I'm looking at more. I know Bruce Anderson is a darling of some. Another, North Dakota State guy, but he was a combine snub, and they don't usually fare too well, so I'm a little backing off of trying to draw interest there. Same thing for Ozigbo, going back to him from your liking him earlier. He was a combine snub. I mean, that kind of is telling because the NFL does a pretty good job of getting it right who they want to invite to the combine for further testing. One of the guys who did get the combine invite and didn't really fare so well, guy I was not really too high on to begin with, and we kind of bumped him out of our individual coverage because of that. That's Elijah Holyfield of Georgia. He's got good burst and quick acceleration, but I think he lacks vision. He's slow to recognize in pass protection when that vision really comes up. He lacks speed to the edge, but that's really kind of where he tries to get. So to me, he's too light through the tackles and he's too slow to the edge, and that kind of sums up who Elijah Holyfield is for me. L.J. Scott is another guy that, out of Michigan State that could get some some opportunities and maybe surprise a little. I think a guy that's kind of getting overlooked, and this was Steve Smith Jr.'s big breakout from the combine, and that's Quadri Olison of Pitt, who followed James Conner at Pitt, I should mention. So, there are some intriguing names, but again, we covered 16 of these guys. Only about 21 are going to get drafted, and I don't really think there's too many outside of the top 16, at least from a fantasy perspective, that are going to make you really want to invest too heavily into. So any other guys you want to mention or any other tidbits on some of the guys we've already named before we wrap up this running back best of the rest?
There's only one other back I think I've heard a lot of buzz on. I'm not convinced he's going to be drafted, but Quadri Ollison's teammate, Darren Hall at Pittsburgh, 5'11", 225 pounds. He was very good at his pro day. It looks like he ran a 4.45. There's a little bit of buzz about him. I wonder why he couldn't beat out his teammate, Quadri Ollison, at the University of Pittsburgh. So I have questions about that. I've heard some rumors that the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at Darren Hall, pretty much in detail, probably because he's, a hometown player playing for the Panthers. He might fit into that Steelers system. Hey, they got James Conner from the University of Pittsburgh, so who knows? I think he's a very interesting name. He's the type of player, to me, if he gets drafted, we have to look out for him. If he goes undrafted, I don't know if he'll be able to latch onto a roster or really make an impact. But I think now we've touched about every player who is possibly going to be drafted, and now let's see where they land, and we can talk about them later on. Right, Andy?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Let us know if you thought we missed anybody at the running back position. Leave it in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Give it a thumbs up for a like. You can check out John's written work, all the other prospects he's covered, and more detailed than some of the stuff we've gotten into on this series. You can check that out at footballdiehards.com. There are a bunch of other great articles from a bunch of other great authors, including some terrific podcasts right here on DLF, dynastyleaguefootball.com. So make sure you're checking those out as well. And you can check out my newly launched expandtheboxscore.com, where you get a look at every touch from every player from the 2018 season. We're going back to 2016. We're going to continue to add historical years as well, so you can compare and contrast players. You can see players side by side, how they fared against similar opponents. Basically, every metric you could want from the college season is right there, and it's only $10 a year, which is just the price of a magazine, a draft magazine, if you will. So take the free stuff we're giving you from this and go invest it into expandtheboxscore.com. But anyway, we want to thank you for checking out everybody we've been covering. Again, these are available in audio format as well on every network that's out there. So wherever you listen, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, anything you name it, we're there as well. And go back and check out the other 45 players we covered on an individual basis. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with us. And hopefully you've been enjoying these, including today's. Thanks for watching.